The cage sat in the center of Dustwell, like a curse. Iron bars, rusted orange, stood welded around a square, just big enough for a girl to curl up and sleep in, if she dared. The July sun blazed high above, heat warping the air around the wooden platform that held the structure aloft. Inside it, barefoot and hollow-eyed, sat a girl wrapped in rags. Her hair was tangled with dust and dried blood. Her lips were cracked. Her name was Clara. Made the sign nailed to the front of the cage read, "Thief, vermin, to be sold." People passed by her as they would a dead animal in the road, either disgusted or entertained. The preacher's wife tossed a lemon peel at her and whispered, "Better this than her kind spreading sickness." Children dared each other to poke the bars. A drunk tried spitting on her through the grates. Clara didn't flinch anymore. She'd stopped crying days ago. Tears were wasted in a town like Dustwell. They said she'd stolen a loaf of bread from Marshall Duane's supply shop. They said she'd tried to bite the sheriff when he came to arrest her. They said she was born wrong, cursed, dangerous. What they didn't say, that the bread she took was stale, that she hadn't eaten in 4 days, that she tried to feed a toddler half dead in the alley behind the saloon, that the sheriff laughed while chaining her wrists. Truth didn't matter here. At noon, the bell rang. Not church bells, not wedding chimes, just the sheriff's hammer against a rail spike. Clang, clang. The town square froze. "All right now," Sheriff Greeley shouted, pulling at the brim of his sweat-stained hat. "The girl goes at sundown, sold off for labor. What's left of her, anyhow?" People chuckled. "You can bet she'll last a week," one man muttered. "Not even," said another. "They break 'em quick down in those mining camps." Clara stared ahead. Her cheek was swollen from last night's rat bite. She hadn't screamed. Screaming wasted energy. And still, her eyes green, bright like shattered bottles burned. Unblinking, proud, and then came the dust. A low rumble. Hooves. Wagon wheels. Boots. From the northern trail. A man rode into town on a dappled horse, with a weather-worn hat and a rifle slung behind his shoulder. His beard was streaked with gray. A leather vest hung loose on his shoulders. A wagon followed, carrying 5 children, 4 seated, one asleep with her head on a sack of potatoes. The townsfolk turned. Whispered. Elias Thorne, widowed rancher of Hawks Hollow. Wife burned in the wildfire 2 winters ago. Built his ranch. Back with blood and grit. Raised 5 kids alone. He hadn't been to Dustwell in over a year. He dismounted slow. Eyes scanned the square. The iron cage caught his gaze first. He paused. Then he walked forward, the dust crunching beneath his boots. His shadow fell long and heavy across Clara's cage. She didn't look away. Neither did he. "What's this?" he asked, voice low. "Stray." Greeley said, "Beggar girl. Stole from the wrong man. We lock up vermin here, Elias." Elias looked at the sheriff, then back to Clara. "How old? 15, 16? Doesn't matter. She's near feral. Be lucky if she don't bite your kids." A boy called out from the wagon. "Pa, is that a prisoner?" "Don't look, Billy," Elias replied. But he kept looking. A murmur grew in the crowd. Elias stepped closer. The cage reeked sweat, iron, and fear. But the girl inside didn't shrink. He knelt. "You got a name?" he asked. Her lips moved. No sound came. "What's that?" She tried again. A whisper. "Clara." Elias nodded. "That yours, or they give it to you?" She didn't. "Cancer." He didn't push. Sheriff Greeley snorted. "You ain't thinking of buying her?" Elias stood. "What's the price?" He said flatly. Gasps. A few chuckles. One woman clutched her pearls. "You serious?" Someone whispered. "She's not." "A horse, Elias," Greeley said. clearly thrown. You don't just buy. You put a sign up, Elias cut in. You marked her as property. I'm offering to take her off your hands. Give her something other than death. You don't know what you're getting. I know a cage don't belong around a child. The sheriff spat. $10. Elias reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a coin pouch, counted silver into the man's palm, then added a sack of flour and a pouch of coffee. For your trouble. Greeley shook his head, but pocketed it all the same. Take her. Just don't bring her back when she starts acting wild. Elias unlocked the cage. Himself. The iron door groaned open. Clara didn't move. He offered a hand. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, then stopped. The silence stretched Dot. She stood on her own, bare feet hitting the wooden platform like thunder. A murmur went through the crowd. She's walking. She's alive. I thought she was mute. I thought she'd crawl. She didn't. She walked down the steps, straight past the townsfolk, straight to the wagon. Elias's children parted for her like waves. She climbed in, sat by. The potatoes looked straight ahead. Elias mounted his horse, tipped his hat. The townsfolk watched them ride away, a thin trail of dust behind them. The cage sat empty. Dot, and for the first time in weeks, Clara May felt sunlight on her face. The ride was long. Dot, no one spoke for miles. Billy kept glancing at her. Rose, the oldest girl, looked furious. The younger ones whispered behind their hands. Clara ignored them all. Her stomach growled. Her hands were shaking. But her eyes didn't blink. Elias finally broke the silence. You run. I won't chase you, he said, not unkindly. But you steal from my children. You and I will have words? She didn't respond. My wife, he hesitated. She'd have wanted someone to help you. That's the only reason you're in that wagon. Still no reply. Can you cook? A small shrug. Guess we'll find out. By sundown, they reached Hawks Hollow. The ranch was worn but alive. Cows in the distance. Chickens scratching near the porch. A clothesline swayed in the wind. Clara stared. She hadn't seen open sky like this in months. Maybe ever. Elias helped the kids down. Clara moved to jump off the wagon, then froze. He noticed. Walked to her. You don't have to stay. Clara looked up. I don't got nowhere else, she whispered. He nodded. You'll sleep in the loft. It's warm up there. Smells like hay. She nodded. You hungry? A long pause. Then, yes. That night, she sat at a wooden table while Elias burned the stew. The kids bickered. The baby cried. Rose watched her like a hawk. Clara said nothing, but when Elias dropped a pot and cursed under his breath, she stood, took the ladle from his hand, stirred with a purpose, added salt, a dash of water. The scent changed. Billy grinned. She is a witch, Grace giggled. A stew witch. Elias chuckled for the first time in months. Clara didn't smile. But she didn't flinch either. Later, when the moon was high, she lay in the loft on a pile of blankets. A window opened above her. Wind sang through it. Stars blinked. She touched the splintered edge of the wooden floor, stared at her palms, still marked from the cage. She whispered to herself, I'm not in it no more. But deep down, the metal still clanged in her mind. Some cages don't leave easy. And far in the distance, in the shadows of the town she left behind, someone watched the road to Hawks Hollow, waiting. Morning at Hawks Hollow began with wind through tall grass and the smell of cow dung. Roosters screamed like it was Judgment Day. The sun crawled over the hills slow, lighting up the ranch one plank at a time. Inside the small, creaking house, Clara May sat stiff in a chair too nice for her. Her hands were folded in her lap, knuckles white, and her eyes scanned the room like every beam of light was a threat. Elias Thorne poured coffee into a tin mug. No sugar, no milk. Just bitter black. You sleep? He asked, voice calm. She nodded. A lie. She hadn't slept a minute. Every creak, every thump in the walls, every chicken screech sent her heart racing. She was still waiting for the cage door to slam again. You don't have to lie, Elias said without looking up. I didn't sleep much either my first week here. She glanced up. He was staring into the coffee like it held old ghosts. Children came in like a pack of squirrels. Billy was first, dragging in a saddle. Pa, you fix this today? Later. Grace danced behind him, singing nonsense about a ghost cow and a pumpkin pie. The baby Lottie toddled in last, clutching a biscuit as big as her face. She offered it to Clara, who blinked at it. Yours. Lottie mumbled, then dropped it into Clara's lap and ran off. Rose stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Her brown eyes didn't blink. You gonna stay quiet forever? She asked Clara. Or just until you steal something? Rose, Elias warned. I'm just asking. She's in Ma's chair. That stung more than Clara expected. She stood, but Elias waved her back down. She sits where she pleases. Rose didn't argue, but she didn't stop staring either. By midday, Clara had walked the perimeter of the barn twice. She never strayed too far, just enough to see where the trees ended and the hills began. Freedom wasn't what she expected. It was wide, loud, full of choices. That made it scarier than the cage. She found a quiet patch behind the chicken coop and crouched low, eyes scanning the sky. Hawks soared above. Wind made the grass hiss. It was the first time in years she felt invisible. In a good way. Elias found her like that. You planning to dig a hole to China? He asked, arms crossed. She stood fast, ready to explain, defend, lie. But he just handed her a sack of potatoes. Since you're out here, make yourself useful. She followed him inside, where chaos reigned. Billy had tied a chicken to a chair to keep it from running. Grace was painting the walls with leftover jam. The baby screamed like a banshee while clinging to a table leg. The kitchen was a battlefield. Clara stared. Then, without a word, tied her hair back with a string and rolled up her sleeves. An hour later, the kitchen smelled like garlic, smoke, and something dangerously close to real food. Clara sliced onions like she'd been doing it all her life. She kept her head down, barely noticing the way Elias watched her. Where'd you learn that? He finally asked. She shrugged. Worked in kitchens. Before. Before the cage? A pause. A quiet nod. He didn't ask more. Didn't need to. That evening, dinner was different. The stew wasn't burnt. The biscuits were soft. The room felt warmer somehow. Elias took one bite and raised his eyebrows. Billy shouted, She's a stew witch, Pa. Told you. Rose scowled. Maybe she just poisoned us slower. But she ate all 3 biscuits. After the meal, Grace climbed into Clara's lap like it was the most normal thing in the world. Lottie followed, jabbing sticky fingers into Clara's hair. Clara froze at first, then let them stay. Later, she cleaned alone by Lanterntht. Elias came in with a bent nail between his teeth and a broken boot in his hand. You don't have to scrub the walls, he said. I like 'em clean. Suit yourself. A beat passed. He leaned against the doorframe. You ever ride? She shook her head. I'll teach you. Can't live out here if you don't ride. Her eyes met his. You gonna keep me? It wasn't a question. It was a test. Elias answered carefully. I didn't take you in to throw you out, but I ain't yours. No, he said, but you ain't nobody's property either. That silenced her. Days passed. Clara learned the rhythm of the ranch. Feed the chickens, haul water, fix the squeaky door hinge, milk the goat, which hated her with violent passion. She didn't speak much, but her hands spoke in what they did patching. Torn shirts, slicing onions, baking biscuits, fixing Elias's limp stew into something edible. The kids began to shift. Billy followed her around like a puppy. Grace asked her to braid her hair. Lottie now refused to sleep unless Clara hummed. Only Rose held out. "She's not our ma," she whispered once, loud enough for Clara to hear. Clara said nothing, but the words cut. One afternoon, Clara sat on the porch steps whittling a piece of wood. It had no shape, just something to do with her hands. Elias joined her with 2 tin cups. Coffee? She took it, sipped, winced. "It's bad," he admitted. Was her recipe. Never could get it right. They sat in silence. Clara finally asked, "What was she like?" Elias stared ahead. She was mean as a coyote and twice as smart. She didn't believe in ghosts, God, or giving up. When the fire came, she ran back inside for the baby. Never came back out. Clara didn't know what to say. So she just said, "I'm sorry." He nodded. "Me too." That night, thunder cracked the sky open. Rain poured in sheets. The roof leaked. A shutter banged loose. Clara woke to screaming Lottie's. She ran barefoot through the hall to the children's room. Lottie was trembling, tangled in blankets. Clara scooped her up, rocked her slow. "It's just thunder," she whispered. "Just loud sky." The baby clung to her like she was made of bone and fire. Rose sat up in bed, watching Dot in the flicker of lightning. Something shifted in her face. Recognition. Maybe even respect. The next morning, something darker came with the rain. Sheriff Greeley. He rode up muddy and mean. 2 deputies behind him. Elias stepped out with his rifle slung across his chest. "We got questions," Greeley said. "About that girl." "She's not a girl," Elias replied. "She's a person, and she's under my roof." "We heard rumors," the sheriff said. "Said she was seen sneaking around the mercantile after dark." "Lies, Elias," snapped. "She hasn't left this ranch." "Still, if she's a problem, she's not." Greeley leaned forward in his saddle. "You better be sure, Thorne. 'Cause she steps 1 inch out of line, it's her neck." He rode off without another word. Clara watched it all from behind the curtains. Her hands were shaking again. That night, Elias didn't eat. He just sat with his coffee, watching the window. "Greeley don't bluff," he muttered. "If someone's trying to set you up." "They are," Clara said quietly. Elias looked over. "I didn't take from no one, but someone wants me gone." "Ad, why?" She hesitated. Then, "I saw something. In Dustwell. Man hurting a kid behind the saloon. I yelled. He hit me. Sheriff said it was my word against his." "And the man?" "Merchant. The one said I stole bread." Elias let out a long breath. "Well," he said, "we'll just have to make sure they don't get you again." She looked at him, sharp. "You don't owe me that." "I know. But you're doing it anyway?" He nodded. "Kids need their stew witch." Outside, the wind howled again, but Clara May didn't tremble. She wasn't in a cage anymore. She was in a house that smelled like bread. And the next storm that came, she'd be ready. The snake came back on a Wednesday. Clara knew something was wrong the moment the wind stopped blowing. The ranch, usually full of motion-creaking fences, clucking hens, children yelling, felt too still. The air hung thick, like the world was, holding its breath. That's when she heard the crunch of boots. Not Elias, not the kids. This was slower, heavier. She looked up from the garden patch, where she was weeding, and saw a man at the edge of the property line. Clean hat, too clean. A smirk under his mustache. He leaned against the post like he owned the place. "Marshal, Dwayne, the merchant, the man who'd put her in the cage. She stood slowly. Her fingers clenched around the gardening spade, though she knew it was useless. He tipped his hat. Well, well, the little beggar girl grows up. She didn't speak. You're a long way from your box, aren't you? Still, she stayed silent. But inside, her stomach churned. Dwayne's eyes swept the ranch. Nice place. Too nice for a filthy little thing like you. I've heard things, Clara. Heard you been talking. Heard someone in Dustwell's been poking around my name. She didn't flinch. You're just a stray, he continued. But strays have a way of drawing wolves. Then, in a whisper meant just for her, you open your mouth. I'll make sure your new daddy and those sweet little brats don't wake up one morning. That was the moment Elias's shotgun cocked behind him. Dwayne froze. I don't recall inviting you onto my land, Elias said coldly. Dwayne didn't turn. Just saying hello to an old acquaintance. You're 2 seconds from leaving in pieces. Slowly, the merchant stepped away from the fence. This ain't over, Thorne. You've hitched your wagon to the wrong ghost. Elias didn't lower the gun until Dwayne was out of sight. Inside the house, Clara paced like a caged animal. He knows where I am, she said. He knows the kids. He'll come back. I have to leave. No, Elias said firmly. If I stay, you'll all be targets. Elias's eyes didn't move from hers. You leave, you hand him exactly what he wants. Clara shook her head. He won't stop. Then neither will I. She looked at him, eyes wet. Why are you doing this? Because you didn't deserve that cage. Because no child does. Because. He stopped. You're not just some stray anymore. That night, Elias kept the lantern burning late. The children were asleep upstairs, but Clara sat by the door with a knife in her. Lap won't help you much, Elias said, placing a second shotgun beside her. But it'll feel better to hold. She gave him a tight smile. Lightning flashed in the distance. Rain hissed against the windows. Shadows shifted across the walls. They waited. The attack came 2 nights later. Just after midnight, the dog barked, then yelped. Clara sat up fast. Elias was already on his feet. 3 figures, masked and on horseback, charged through the field. One threw a torch toward the barn. Flames licked the hay in seconds. Elias shouted, "Get the water! Wake the kids!" Clara ran for the buckets. While he fired a warning shot, the raiders circled the house. One dismounted and kicked in the back door. Clara met him with a swing of the shovel. It cracked across his jaw. He fell like a sack of rocks. Another burst in through the kitchen. She lunged at him, barefoot, wild, knife raised, but he shoved her aside, hard. Her head slammed the table leg. She saw stars, then a gunshot, then silence. She woke with Elias crouched over her, blood at his temple, sweat pouring from his face. You all right? He asked, voice shaking. She nodded slowly. He helped her up. The house reeked of smoke. One of the attackers was dead. Another had fled. The third lay tied up outside, groaning. Elias sat back, breathing hard. They came to burn us down. I told you, Clara whispered. And I told you, he said, you're not alone. The barn burned half down before the rain finally smothered the flames. By morning, all that remained was scorched. Wood and ash. Billy cried. The goats had fled. The hay was gone. Elias stood staring at it all, like he could will it back. Clara joined him, silent. This ranch barely survived once, he said. I don't know if I can rebuild again. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You won't have to do it alone. He turned. Something passed between them. Something that hadn't been there before. Trust. Real and earned. They interrogated the captured rider. He spat blood and curses. I was paid. By who? I didn't get a name. Clara. Stepped closer. Describe him. The man looked up at her. Real clean. Fancy boots. Said to make it look like an accident. Said no one would miss a stray. Elias's jaw clenched. Marshal Duane. Can't prove it, the man sneered. Maybe not, Clara said, but I can. The air went cold. Elias looked at her. What are you saying? I'm done hiding. The next day, Clara packed a saddlebag. Rose watched from the fence. Where are you going? Dustwell? Alone? Clara nodded. Duane's dangerous. I know. Then why? Clara tied her hair back. Because someone has to be. Elias walked out as she saddled the horse. I should come with you. You're hurt. I've been hurt before. I can do this, she said. He looked at her, really looked. She wasn't the same girl he'd bought from that cage. She stood straighter, spoke louder, carried herself like someone who believed she mattered. He nodded. You come back. You? Hear me? She met his eyes. I will. The ride to Dustwell was long and cold. She passed the road where they'd first met. The empty cage still lay in a pile of scrap metal near the sheriff's office. Good. Let it rot. She rode in at noon. Town square. Dust, heat, eyes. She tied the horse and walked straight into the saloon. It went quiet. Marshal Duane sat at a poker table near the back. 3 men flanked him. He smiled slow when he saw her. Well, if it isn't the little ghost girl? She walked to the center of the room. Clara May, she said loud. Accused of theft. Caged without trial. Witness to your crimes. Murmurs. She pulled a folded paper from her coda statement, signed by the orphan boy Duane had beaten. Elias had tracked him down weeks ago, hidden in a church cellar. I've got testimony. Proof. And if anything happens to me, Sheriff Greeley gets this. Duane stood, eyes narrowing. You're bluffing. Clara stared him down. Try me. He lunged at the barkeep, pulled a shotgun. Greeley burst through the door. Enough. In 10 minutes, Duane was in chains. In 20. The whole town was talking. That night, Clara rode home under a blanket of stars. Her body ached. Her lip was split. But inside, she felt lighter. At Hawks Hollow. Elias was waiting. You did it, he said. She dismounted. Limped toward the porch. He caught her before she fell. You did it, he whispered again. No, she said. We did. Inside, the fire was warm. The children were safe. And for the first time in her life, Clara May felt like she belonged. The rattlesnake had returned, but this time, she bit back. The wind howled across the broken plains, scattering dust like lost prayers. Night draped the land in a thick, aching blackness. But inside the lantern-lit barn of Jasper Boone's ranch, the woman once called the Cage Girl sat beside the fire, her fingers wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee. Her name was Clara. Now she had claimed it back. She no longer flinched at her reflection. But outside, the world hadn't forgotten. The town hadn't forgiven. And though Jasper had given her shelter, a name, and the safety of his sprawling ranch, danger had merely stepped back. Not retreated. It began with a knock. Sharp. Cold. Around midnight. Jasper reached the door with his rifle in hand. Clara stayed near the children, now hers to feed, read to, and tuck in. 3 men stood outside, faces hard, coats dusty. The man in the middle wore a deputy's star and a preacher's expression, dead eyes, thin smile. The same lawman who'd once watched Clara rot in the cage outside town hall. You took in property, Boone, he said calmly. Runaway debt girl. That makes you complicit. She ain't property, Jasper growled. She's family. That so? The man lifted his chin. And you won't mind if we take a look inside. Jasper cocked the rifle. You ain't stepping a boot on my land without a warrant. That night, they didn't return. But Clara knew what it meant. She sat up while the children slept. Jasper joined her near the fireplace, and the two spoke. In whispers, not fear but strategy. She didn't want to run again. Not from them. Not with the 5 children clinging to her, calling her Ma. I'm not leaving, Clara whispered. Not unless you tell me to. Jasper looked at her long and hard. The flicker of firelight danced over his beard and scars. I buried a wife once, he said. I ain't burying the one I just found. They came at dawn. 12 men this time. Guns, ropes, deputies and vigilantes both. They came riding fast, hell-bent on dragging Clara back to that cage. Or worse. Jasper rang the old iron bell on his porch. A signal, a cry, a call to arms. Neighbors came, not many but enough. Old friends, new ones. Folks who remembered Jasper's kindness. People who had lost daughters, sisters, wives to men who twisted laws into leashes. And Clara, she didn't hide. She stood on the porch beside Jasper, her wild hair braided back, her chin up. No longer a girl in rags. A woman in work-worn denim, gun at her hip. She broke the law, barked the deputy. She broke chains, Jasper shot back. That's what scares you. A tense silence fell. Even the horses stomped nervously. The deputy sneered. You want to protect her, fine. But when the courts come, let 'em, Clara cut in. Her voice was calm, but it echoed like thunder. I'll walk in on my own feet. But I ain't wearing chains. Not now. Not ever. Again. Inside, the children cried. They had seen too much already. But Clara knelt and spoke softly. You stay with Miss Lottie next door if anything happens. And remember, kindness ain't weakness. It's the strongest thing we've got. She kissed them each goodbye. Just in case. The standoff didn't end in blood. One of the townsmen, a farmer, who'd lost his wife to a similar death sentence, stepped forward. This ain't law, he said. It's vengeance. You want her? You'll have to take her through us. The rest followed. The mob faltered. Men don't hang women when their neighbors are watching. Not in broad daylight. The deputy backed off, spitting in the dirt. This ain't over. No, Jasper said, but your kind is. Months passed. The law changed not because of Clara, but because her story refused to stay quiet. A traveling writer heard about it and printed the tale in a Wild West dime paper. The headline read, Caged for being poor freed by a rancher's heart. People talked, wrote letters, preachers preached, judges took heat. And somewhere in all of that, a bill was passed. No more dead cages. Not in that state. Not in any. Back. On the ranch, life found a rhythm. Clara learned to laugh again. She planted roses near the porch, wild, stubborn things that grew in bad soil. She taught the youngest to write their names. And one chilly morning, with the dawn just peeking over the hills, Jasper came out holding a little box. Wooden. Rough. Inside was a ring carved from bone and silver. Don't need no preacher, he said. Just a yes. Clara didn't cry. Not at first. But her yes came like breath. Yes, she whispered. To the ring, to the kids, to this wild, busted-up life with you. And in the years to come, folks said she walked with her head high, that she was still fierce, still tender, still the woman who'd once been locked in a cage and dared to come out swinging. And every so often, someone would ride past the ranch and ask Jasper, Is it true? Did you really rescue her? And he'd smile through his beard and say, No, she was never the one who needed rescuing. Out here, law ain't always right, and the weak aren't always helpless. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who were once told they were nothing, And if you're ever feeling trapped, caged, or forgotten, remember Clara. She didn't just break free. She stayed free and built a home strong enough for 5 kids and a man still learning how to smile again. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because stories like Clara's, they're too powerful to stay silent.